my sessions to someone who's also being very active in social and communal reasons. Has also been a part of NASA, being NASA president, one of the students' initiative in a global level. And he's also the Indian project coordinator in the Observation for Action Network Grants program launched jointly by the UDC and NASA and the Living Cities also. So how can I start with him is that one of the works of UDC which was very personally connecting to me was the Chatewit Harrington Road streetscape, because I studied in MCC, and during the rains and all, Romo Mashiarkum, but it was being a posh area. They didn't take that was not an initiative back then. But when I'm seeing it, when I'm taking it, I didn't know it was done by UDC, but it has made a lot of change in the way the people's movement has created and the traffic and flow and everything. And to give a much more personal connection to the entire session, so I hand over it to Srihari Anna, who's also been a part of NASA, being our UD USEC. So yeah.
Srihari, you're on mute.
Hi Srivardhan Anna. Hi everyone.
Hi.
With my college people basically. So initially it's like 4 years back, first NASA UD meeting ZCM was hosted in your college, MeCgan. So that time I was like a very new guy there, and அப்படியே ஒரு மாதிரி பதட்டமா நின்றுக்கிற டைம்ல திடீர்னு ஒரு ஃபேஸ் ஒரு person came to me and he was like really concerned and was inquiring ella okay wa, it's like everything clear. And that created a very initial vibe about a college or a environment, and that was Srivardhan Anna, and that was the first time I met him on MeCgan. So from there on, I still remember like we once traveled to doing some convention. We had some transition time in Mumbai, and we used to travel around for looking for the buildings and all. That's how we get connected at that time. And actually,
Hello. Anna.
Srihari Anna.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
For a general suggestion, maybe I think he's having some network issue. We can just carry on with the session.
Yeah. So we'll get it started. Anna, we can start with the presentation.
Yeah.
And
actually, am I audible to all of you?
Yes, now very much.
Hello. Am I audible? Yeah. Sorry,
yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, coming back to the thing, NASA is like a big platform for all the basically student community na vechikalam. So Srivardhan Anna has been a great part when he was a vice president. When I was a USEC, he was a vice president. Then he became the president and advisor. It's like a long run. So இப்போ நீங்க what you guys are experiencing நாசான்ற ஒரு பெட்டரான பிளாட்ஃபார்ம் மேக் ஆகிறதுக்கான ஒரு மெயின் ஒரு பில்லர்னே நம்ம ஸ்ரீவர்தன் அண்ணா சொன்னாங்க. That's how he had been contributing to for the student community. So now he has been actively engaged in communal projects. So உங்களை பத்தி we wanted to know like how the process, and I think all the people who have been joined for the session, they'll be like really interested to hear எப்படி ஒரு architect, how the stakeholders or how the community project works. So thank you so much for your time, Anna. Thanks for joining. We are looking forward for your session now.
Thank you, Srihari. Thank you, entire SEED team. So what he pointed out, whatever we did in NASA wouldn't have been possible without the support of USECs like him, and also all the students who cooperated with all our initiatives. So it is always done as a team, whatever was done in NASA. And this initiative that you guys are doing is actually very interesting. So I recently got to know about this, and I wish you guys all the best. Keep doing this. This is something very much needed. That even in NASA we had been trying to get the college to do some activities on their own, and it's a good thing that you guys are doing it on your own. So all the best. Okay, so
yeah.
Can I
Maybe we'll
start?
start up with your session now, your presentation, and then side by side we'll start having questions maybe after the end of your session. Yeah.
Sure. So is the screen visible to all of you?
Yes, now. Yeah, Vandana screen sharing.
Yeah. Okay. So I thought it would be interesting to talk about how important public participation is in design, because this is something that is gaining pace in all the projects, mainly all the smart city projects and all those that are happening right now. So I'll thought it would be interesting to talk to you guys about the tools that we use, which is very basic and it could be done in all the projects. So I think most of you are aware of Jane Jacobs, the famous American journalist and activist. She's also the author of The Death and Life of Great American Cities. So she has quoted this: cities have the capability of providing something for everybody only because and only when they are created by everybody. So this is one of the very inspiring quotes to all of us who work with cities and making people friendly environments. So moving on to what is public participation. So what comes to your mind when you think of public participation? Here, what we do in public participation is mainly to inform the community. So there'll be certain set of stakeholders who form a community, and they might be the end users of that project, that particular project. So it is very important to inform them of what are the plans, process, and decisions that are to be made and that are taken with respect to that project. And so when we plan to have some project in a particular location, it is very important to understand what is the need and what the users actually prefer. It can't be just some random insert which has no context. So it is very important to obtain information from the users. Another important thing is their approval and acceptance for all the proposals that are going to be made, and their active participation or partnership will help us make things better. They can give you some knowledge which will help you in preparation of plan, exchange of ideas. They will also help us in basically taking the project through. They will help us connect with the community, spread the information, and encourage a lot of others to participate. So, and one other important thing is certain bottom top approach, which is certain grassroots initiatives which could be jointly implemented by the communities along with the local government authorities. It is not always possible just for the government to make all the changes. So when we do this, when people feel involved, they might also come up with initiatives that can be implemented in a larger project. So why do we need public participation? So for example, when you're doing a residence project, you know who the client is, and it is very, I wouldn't say it is easy, but it is at least easy for us to understand the requirement of a client because it's a defined client. But here in public projects, imagine there are 100,000 clients like this. So you have to design it for all the user groups. So to understand that, public participation is very important. It helps us to understand the various perspectives that they hold towards a project or towards a place. And so when we do this, it actively encourages people of all kinds to participate and use the project. Like for example, if a park is designed, it will turn a failure if it is not used by the public. That might lead to vandalism, it might lead to a lot of other problems. So it is very important that public participation, which will help us, is carried on properly, which will help us to have people use the project actively. Another thing is effective utilization of public funds. So most of the public projects are done using our money, the public money. So it is very important for us to utilize that properly. So if a project is executed and if it is not utilized properly, it is ultimately a loss for the government and for the people. And one other important thing, especially when we are at a college level, we often get convinced by what we feel is the need there. But in most cases, what we feel might not be the actual need for the users there. So it is very important to understand what they want and design accordingly. So I thought it would be nice to discuss some of the projects and show. So when it comes to public participation, it is very different. It varies from project to project. There are various tools that we use. So it's completely a diverse thing, and it is basically a learning for us also in every project of how to handle different set of people based on the project and its requirements, which help us in arriving at the end outcome. So I will run you through some projects that I had worked on with Urban Design Collective. So these are at three different scales. One is at urban planning scale, other one at a master plan level, the other one is at a street level, and one more is at an individual project scale. So first, I would like to start with the ecological master plan project. So this is in Siriseri. I think most of you must be knowing this is very closely located to your college. So here, the image that you see on the left is the image of the lake in January 2019, and after restoration, the image that you see on right is recently clicked of the same lake. So this was done in collaboration with Pichandikulam Forest Consultants. So here, yeah, so here we were engaged to do the community outreach and engagement strategy. So this is the process that we follow. So first thing is, there are certain similarities that we also do in college, but this is more at a detailed way of how we do it here. So first thing is, after the project is initialized, uh, we have our initial site visit where we understand the basics, the geography of the site extent and all of it. And after that, a detailed survey questionnaire is prepared. So based on the project needs of what, and according to who's the user that we are going to conduct the survey for. And next is map, connecting the community. So it is also important to connect to the community. It is not possible for us, for people from outside, to randomly go and talk to everybody. So it is very important to identify the key stakeholders, and with that we can form the web to connect to all the users. And then and then it is also important for us to map, so which will give us which will help us in understanding the context of the village with respect to the project, and also to understand the surroundings and the various user groups. So household surveys are conducted. I will also explain in detail of what each step is and how we went about doing that. So post household surveys, so when most cases when we do the surveys, it is very important to keep keep a track on what we are doing. So it's often important for us to come together, put the data, keep checking in what path it is going. So in case if we are required to make any changes in the way the data is being recorded, so this back and forth needs to happen throughout. So it's very important to put together the data and see how it is taking shape. And then the other thing is focus group discussion. So we gather a common set of people, and we frame certain questions based on what group that is, and we held focus group discussions, and then community meetings. So with the entire community, where we displayed all the surveys, all the results, and also conducted a poll to understand what they want. And then all this data analysis, whatever is collected, is put together in the form of a report, and this entire data feeds into the master plan that is going to be developed, that was developed along this project. So talking in detail, so this is the location. This is where Siriseri is located. The red dot is Siriseri. So there are two areas here, Periyeri and Siteri, next to each other, which is and so when we started interacting with people, so right now the lake is unused, but this generally areas here, areas in general serves to control floods, prevent soil erosion, reduce waste of runoff during heavy floods, etc. So, but in 1990s, what happened is SEZ was proposed, and the Subcot ID corridor came, ID park came here in Siriseri. So they also started drawing water from here. On the other side, parallelly, there was a decline in agricultural practice, which also contributed to lack of farming. So the only use of water was for leisure. And because there was no farming, it led to people traveling outside the village. So because of that, their time for leisure was also reduced. So the lake was, I will show you pictures of how the lake was before restoration. So when we started to interact with people, we understood what was their connect with the area previously. So what are the different activities that they used to do? There were so many birds. They used to do fishing, swimming, and most of them spent a lot of time in these areas previously. So it helps us to understand these kind of socio-cultural and socio-economic activities when we talk to people individually. So this is the site condition when the project was started. So the lake was dry, there was a lot of garbage dump, and all of this was the existing condition. So then moving on to the next one was mapping. So here you see the lake on the left side, that is the Periyeri. Below that is the Siteri. So Siriseri had an interesting transect that actually traverses from the forest on the top. The green is the forest that you see, and it cuts through a series of cascading system of areas. So this is an interesting transect over here, and this is the Sipcot. The pink that you see is Sipcot, and there are a series of educational institutions, religious nodes located all around. And this particular portion, the gray that you see above First Main Road, a little above that, is my pointer visible?
Yeah,
Or
yes.
yeah, okay. So this is the village.
Okay.
So this mapping, on-ground mapping, helps us to understand how to connect to various people, basically to cover all the areas when we do this kind of a survey and mapping. Post the mapping, we started with the household survey. So this is some questions from the household survey that I've put here. It basically evolves around, also based on the demographics. So we use the census data to arrive at the demographics, and then as a part of the project initialization, we also held meetings with the local panchayat leader to understand more about the village. So once all of this was done, this questionnaire is aimed to understand the basic services and needs and priorities of the residents. So the images that you see, this is how the household survey was conducted. So we went to individual households and collected their response to. So this also helps us in making them aware of what the project is, and helps them to connect better to the area, tell us about some stories, and also they also tell us about the local champions, or basically the people who will help us connect with a lot of others and take this data to a larger forum of discussion and help us with inputs.
Mm-hmm.
So this is with respect to household surveys. And then we have this so this is how so post the household surveys, we were able to identify different people in the community. So this is a web which shows who helped us in connecting to whom. And on the right side, you see the list of power players who are categorized. So power players are somebody who has power of influence, like he could be an ex panchayat head or a VAO and all these people. And there are different communities. So we had some people from minority community, women players. So there were several self-help groups. So when we spoke to these people, we got to know that we were able to connect to the self-help groups through the women players. So it was very important that we have them. And then we had children who were, initially we found a lot of kids spending time along the street. So through one of the kid, we were able to connect to a lot of other kids to have discussions with them. And if you might have noticed in the map, there are some gated communities also around this area. So to connect to them, we had a person from them representing them who was able to get the surveys done and help us with all of it from their side. And then oral history. So we had elders who were able to share the stories and their connect with the area, which gave us a lot of stories and helped us understand how it was used before. And then we have youth, youngsters who, so their perspective was very different when it comes to the area where they enjoyed swimming, and these days they don't get all those opportunities and all of this. So they also gave us inputs. So based on the champions that we identified, we were also able to categorize key players who helped us in connecting to the village and helped us gain more inputs for the process. So the next one was focus group discussion. So here, one thing that we noticed is here in focus group discussions, especially in Silseri, people felt more comfortable talking as a group than as individuals. So here, if you notice, there are 5 different images with 5 different groups. So we made sure everybody was equally engaged: kids, elders, women, and then a group of families. So we brought together all of them. We identified, so through the local champions, we identified where can we go and find this group of people. So with their help, we were able to connect to the focus groups, and then we were able to have focus group discussion. So here, this is very targeted at a specific audience. So for example, if it's a kids group, the questions would focus on what the kids will be able to answer and what they want to see. So for a focus group discussion, it's very important to have questions and tools that will help us generate answers from their group. It can't be a general questionnaire when it comes to a focus group discussion. Okay, so that is one thing. And then, so as I said earlier, it's very important to organize the data along the entire process. So this is how we get back. When we get back to office, we put all the data together. We made a list of the power players, connected them, formed the web diagram that you saw previously is evolved from putting data together like this. And then we, through the previous surveys, focus group discussions, and all the individual surveys, we were able to identify what are all the issues that they had, and then what are all the, we also identified where do they go for different needs, educational needs, work purpose, and all of this. So this is a map that shows where people go to from Sirisiri. So when we overlay the bus routes, we are able to see the missing connectivity, and all of this can be understood from this. And this is how, so when we started to ask people what they wanted to do, what they wish to see the areas, there were some suggestions. So we listed down what is the requirement, what is the infrastructure need for that, and what is the initial investment, and what is the mode in which role of public, private, and government partnership. So that was also put together, which you see here is a chart of that. So compiling all these data together, we held a community meeting with the entire community. And so this, we had displayed all, we had discussed all these results, and we had taken inputs from people who were missed out during the surveys. So we had also briefed them about the project and all of this. Parallelly, also to get kids, we held a drawing competition there, so that are they also come forward to participate. So through this competition, we were able to understand what their vision was for the area, and surprisingly, we found most of them are very, it's more towards an environmental aspect, where they wanted to see birds, boating, and all of these were some of the outcomes. So, and one other important thing from this engagement, the community engagement, was to conduct polls. So to know, so from, we had identified around 28 different projects that they would want to see. So we had put together all of them, and opened this for public voting to understand what is the preference of the public. So post, this is the results when we compile, put together. So on left we have the survey which was taken by the village residents, and then the gated communities around. So after that, we also have on the right side, you see the total of each, for each project actually. So all of these inputs compiled form our report, which is now acting as some sort of information for the master plan. And based on this, the lake restoration is now complete, and then they are now planning to start work on other things, like for example, to build a knowledge center, and all of those are being looked upon right now. So this is at an urban planning scale that we worked on. So moving on to the next one, I think some of you might have seen
Anna,
this. Yes.
so can we have a set of series of questions for that particular project, and then can we move on, or we'll just get done with the session and then we'll take up questions? Will that
Okay.
be fine, or?
How do you? I don't mind coming back to any project at the end also, but it depends on
Okay.
how much time you have.
So the session is planned for almost 1 hour or 1.5 hours, but then if it's up to us now. If you're ready to give us any more time, we'll be happy to listen to, because it is anyway
Yeah.
getting interesting. So
Okay.
shall we start up with some questions, or we'll get done? You can completely show the session, and then we'll come up with questions.
Yeah. Would that be better to finish the entire orientation and then come up with questions?
Yeah, fine now. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Even if it's otherwise, feel free to let me know. It's completely
Yeah,
fine.
sure. Now, okay.
No problem. Yeah. Okay. So this is tactical urbanism as a strategy. So are you guys aware of what NMT is? NMT is non-motorized transport. So in Coimbatore, we had this opportunity. Coimbatore, the smart city, is working on developing non-motorized corridor connecting different parts of the city. So here we wanted to demonstrate the idea of a complete street. Complete street, in other words, is a model street where you show how the right of way distribution is done with considering all the users. So we wanted to demonstrate this through a tactical urbanism approach, which is a temporary approach. And this was done in Big Bazaar Street in Coimbatore. So for this project, before we started, we wanted to develop awareness of non-motorized transport network in the city. So this is a map of Coimbatore, which this was actually a game that we developed to make people understand or basically develop the awareness of non-motorized transport. So this game is you can see those 6 different houses. So each player gets a house and then they get a set of destinations that they have to travel to. They get different modes, and based on the mode that they use, they are charged a pollution fee. So the person with the highest money in the end wins. So it's about making right choices to commute to different distance. So it is also very important, and we also had this thing of who completes it first. So that is also there. So you will have to make right choices on the mode of transport. So this is one way we felt we could engage and develop the awareness of non-motorized transport in the city. So this is how we started the project. And then going back to tactical urbanism, it was about making small changes for a short-term action for a longer-term change. Yeah. So this was done, and sorry, okay, yeah. So this is a larger site context. The yellow that you see highlighted is the site area. The red is the site exactly, and this is the surrounding 1 kilometer stretch of that area. So here in Coimbatore, this is a larger map of Coimbatore. Big Bazaar Street is actually one of the most important commercial hubs in the city. It houses the corporation office. It has several institutions located around. So this is the block structure of 500-kilometer radius. So if you could see, there are so many government offices located around district library, the corporation office, Victoria Town Hall, the various buildings, important buildings, and it also had equal balance of commercial shops around this particular site. It had a variety of users actually, this particular stretch. So it was very interesting for us to identify ways on how we could cater to all the users through various means. And this is the existing road geometry. So if you could see it, the right of way, actually right of way is the total distance from one property edge on one side to the property edge on the other side. And this total distance varied from 17 to 24 meters in this particular stretch. So here, since it is a mixed group of users and it sees a wide range of activity throughout, uh, it this particular stretch has shops ranging from grocery, medical stores to textile, footwear. It basically offers everything. And as I told earlier, it also houses a lot of important buildings. So the right of way here has an oversized bus lane and 2 lanes for motorized transport, parking lane on one side, and high volume and pedestrian footpath on both sides. But the volume of people moving around here is very high. So we wanted to redistribute the right of way such that there was sufficient space for the bus lane, and parking lane was retained as such without disturbing anything. And we also made sure there were wider pavements on both sides so that people who right now use the roads were given their space without any vehicles in that particular stretch. So all these were the changes that you see in the right of way was made taking into account different mapping, the surveys, and all the vehicle counts, pedestrian counts, and all of this was taken at various parts of the day throughout during weekdays, weekends, and then based on all those, we arrived at the changes in the road geometry. So this is how we changed the road geometry. So if you can see below in the image, you see 2 kids. So even otherwise, this is how kids, when most people in this street use, so they end up walking on the roads, waiting on the roads for buses. So when we extended, we used paint, simple intervention to demarcate the right of way, demarcate the extended footpath, and it it allowed us to channelize the movement of people and flow of vehicles. So this is how the right of way was. So there was not no much difference made to the right of way. It is just streamlining the movement of vehicles in the respective lanes, and the rest was given to pedestrians. So another important thing that we noticed is the number of pedestrian crossings were insufficient, and it was not located exactly in the place where people cross. So after our detailed study, we identified at least 10 more locations based on the people movement patterns, and in uh, we made these quite unique with colorful designs to encourage pedestrians and especially school children to use the pedestrian crossing and initiate the road safety aspect in all of them. So the artwork also overall it contributed towards the character of the street. These are some of the patterns that we used in the pedestrian crossings. This is how it looked when it was executed on the site. High attractive pedestrian crossings, which basically made a clear demarcation for people to use it. And the next thing was redesigning of the intersections. So there were 4 different intersections in this particular stretch, and redesign was done in such a way that the efficient movement of traffic was maintained, as well as the safety for pedestrians was improved. So compromising on the efficient traffic movement will again lead to a lot of opposition. So we wanted to balance everything and make sure there was equal importance given to pedestrians and vehicles. So after that, so this is one of the major intersections. This is a Y intersection. So this is how these are the changes that it was made. We extend based on all the extended footpaths and required turning radius for buses on both sides. And this is a photo of how it was after it was done. This is another intersection. So in this particular intersection, we saw a lot of people spending time here. So we thought we'll add some more seaters and give them a space to sit. So we that was also a part of this intersection. And then based on the efficient traffic pattern, we redesigned the intersection completely. This is a photo of how it was after implementation. And when we did this, we were able to see the change. So without even telling people that this is what you have to follow, we could see people choosing to move only in the road and not in the painted areas. So this actually helped in generating. So if you look at this image, you can see buses moving in the dedicated lines, and there are other motorized vehicles taking the other lanes. So this was actually very interesting because this was done along a national highway which is active 24. This project was done in just 4 nights. The execution part of it was done in 4 nights, and it was along the national highway. So we had vehicular movement throughout. We were never able to cordon off the entire site, and we had to work blocking different lanes at different times. So, and all of this, most of the work was done only in the nights, and just 4 nights it was. So moving on to the next one was the orientation of the street. So this particular street is oriented east-west, and the one of the biggest problems is there was no no shade in the street. Main, there was a very little shade during at 4 p.m. when we is what we noticed. So we wanted to add shaded shading devices and allow people to experience how it would be when it is shaded. Obviously, we will want it to be shaded with natural vegetation trees, but that was not possible in such a short time. So we had used other materials like saris, which was also sourced from local businesses, and the plants that we had were also taken from the local nursery. So we identified locations in which we could place these shading devices, and so this is one of the existing sites, and this is how we proposed the shading device to be. This is a detail. So it was done based with a lot of recycled materials and materials that we could take on rent. So we used saris, we used the GI pipes, which basically was taken for rent, so that we can. So once the project is over, we had to give back all the materials. It's not possible to keep it on the site because this was a temporary project. So that was also kept in mind when we went about doing this project. And we also wanted to ensure we had as much as opportunities for the local businesses to also participate in this project. So this is how it looks. it looked on site post completion of the shading devices. This was again the choice of making shading was arrived at as one of the results of the surveys that was conducted during our study on site. So we close to 3 months we spent on studying different parts of the site with different users, and we had a similar survey here to understand what is the problem that users are facing, what do they feel, what is missing, what do they want to see in this, and shading was one of the important points that was put forward and that was taken into consideration when we design. So this is how, even otherwise, this is, you could see this is how people wait on the road for buses, because there is no adequate space in the bus stop or in the footpath. So when we did this, we were able to restrict the movement of buses to the dedicated lane, and people could use the rest of the road for walking and for waiting for, and other activities. So this is, apart from this, as I mentioned earlier, there are several institutions around, and we wanted to give some equal opportunities for the kids and others to have some fun, which will encourage them to walk basically. So considering this, these were some of the games that we proposed and made it on site. So this is how it was post execution on site. This was to encourage people to walk. When streets are designed for everybody, it becomes more comfortable, and it's also encouraging for them to walk. Like you mentioned, Harrington Road is very encouraging for, it's also inclusive, it allows everybody to take that street, and it's very comfortable for people to walk also. So this is so here this is how it looks when people wait on the road for buses. So we basically extended the area after all the study. So this is how it is after execution. So then we also found that number of existing seatings provided was not adequate, and in some cases also broken. So we wanted to add temporary seaters, which was actually another point that came out as a part of the surveys, and this was used widely by the people after implementation. So, and our streets would remain incomplete without utilities, and here in Big Bazaar Street, most of the utilities were overhead. So we wanted to make the utilities a little more attractive by painting the utilities. And as a part of the study that we did initially, we were able to identify the different stakeholders, and we had categorized them as primary, secondary, and tertiary based on the time that they spend in this particular street. So based on this, we had conducted our initial surveys, and so post tactical urbanism, we wanted to engage the users and understand if the changes made were okay, or if they felt something else was required. So for this, we, based on stakeholders, based on the time that we felt they will be able to spend for a survey, we categorized them into 3 different types of surveys. So that is intercept surveys, opinion polls, and activity based. So intercept surveys were like quick surveys for less than a minute, which is like, for example, if it's at a pedestrian crossing, we would ask them if they were okay with some pedestrian crossings like this. And for parking, streamlining of parking was done. So when people come to park, we could ask them if this parking changes were fine. All these kind of small immediate questions for people who would prefer to spend less than a minute, and for people who are comfortable to spend from 1 minute to 5 minutes, we made opinion polls talking about the shading, sidewalks, intersection, and different activities, and gave them options to vote for different things. And then the other thing was activity based. So for those who were more interested in knowing what is happening, we had displayed all the survey study that we had done, and we had also kept the games here so that people could engage with and understand more about this particular non-motorized transport and what was happening there. So this was also placed at different locations along the street as per whatever the survey was. And this is a photo of how the opinion poll. So we had used these mobile cards, and we had displayed the informations in different parts of the street. This whole experiment was done for around 15 days. So post completion of the work, the surveys were conducted for 15 days. And this is how people were given opportunities to vote for what they felt as they would want to see in the street. This was all done after showing them an experience of how it will look like. So based on this, the government, all the officials were happy, people were happy, and now based on all these recommendations that have come together, the detailed plan and other aspects of this is being looked at to develop and make this a permanent part of the Big Bazaar Street in Coimbatore. So another thing that we developed was a game to understand public preferences. So the entire right of way was made into a model, and we had made different users of the street, all the vehicles, and we had pedestrians at pedestrian, the footpath sizes at different sizes, and parking. All of this made in the form of a model, and we gave this to people to choose how they wanted, what all elements they wanted in the street, which will also help us to actually get some opinions on how they wanted their street. It basically helps us to understand what is their need and what they think is ideal as a street for them. So moving on to the next project, this is another. This project is here in Chennai. It's an accessible beach walkway. This is also a community initiated project. So this client here is the Greater Chennai Corporation, but this is initiated by DRA, Disability Rights Alliance, and we are working as consultants for them. So in 2016, we had this Rights for Persons with Disability Act mandate, which said there needs to be access for all persons with disability to navigate beaches on any days, since they are also public spaces. So previously, our Chennai Corporation used to do this on World Disability Day, where they used to make a temporary setting for people to access the beach. But on 2016, it was decided that they would make that permanent. And after that, we had the so this we there is no we do not have this kind of a project right now here in India. So we had to take references from outside, study and apply them on Indian context, also understanding what is the need of the people with disabilities. So that was an important consideration that we had to take into account. And we put together, after a detailed study of what is the requirements of the project, we identified these to be the requirements. So first of all, it has to be a complete barrier-free access from the bus stop. Like from the moment they get down from the bus till the pathway till they come back should be completely accessible. A wooden deck pathway till the high tide line, and for those who come by car and two-wheelers, there needs to be a designated parking for them, and beach or sand buggies that allow them to go to the water. It's a specially designed wheelchair which travels on sand, and then signages to basically to make them understand it is, so it's actually for everybody to ensure others do not use this, like it's not for motorists to go on and all of those, and it is also for us to communicate about this. So looking at site consideration, so all of this falls under Coastal Regulation Zone B. Chennai, majority of the beaches in Chennai is marked under Coastal Regulation Zone B, which allows no permanent construction in the beach. So though this was an exception made, it was highly recommended that it has to be a semi-permanent construction, highly stable but semi-permanent construction, as this was an exception that was made by the Environmental Clearance Committee at central level. So again, when in this project, it requires a lot of stakeholder cooperation, because we'll have to get permissions from state level Environmental Clearance Committee, and then center, and then Greater Chennai Corporation also needed to approve the site. Apart from that, the other considerations was the soil was loose, it was a sandy soil, and the humidity that is always there, and it is more towards the coastal areas, and the salt content, which makes it very hard for material choices. Apart from all of this, we have most of the beaches around South Chennai are olive ridley turtle nesting grounds. So it is very important. Like for example, the lighting that we use can't be the normal lighting which will disturb them. It had to be small uplighters, very low powerful uplighters, and all of this. So based on all the initial study, we had arrived at a schematic plan which had the landing deck. So when towards the roadside, we have the landing deck where they arrive. They will be able to gather in this landing deck and then move along their wheelchairs till the high tide line. And while they move, they could stop in between. And in case they just want to go see the waters but not get into, they could stop at the sea deck and view, basically spend their time there. And for those who wanted to go to the water, they could take the these buggies from there. So material used again here was a little different compared to normal things, because we were not allowed to use RCC and all the major constraints were there. So we wanted to use the recycled sleeper wood from railway tracks, which are very strong. We thought that could be the base structural member, and then we used wood because we felt that could be the most stable and sustainable material that we can use here. So we had that to form the timber base framework on top of the sleeper, and then wood was preferred for decking. But we would have wanted to keep the same wood for WPC. I mean for the handrails also, but we had to replace that with WPC because of the splinter issue. Because if splinters go into hand, again that becomes a problem. So we had to consider all of this. And although this project might look very simple, but it involves a lot of other activity, a lot of study and groundwork before this initial design was developed. So this is how it looks as a schematic view. So this is all the joineries are completely wooden joineries. So structural element, the sleeper network, and then we have the timber framework on top, decking, and the wooden handrail. This might look very simple, but there is so much thought process behind each step of this project. So this is one of the site locations. So here in this particular site, this was initially proposed in next to opposite to Ashtalakshmi temple in Dasanagar, but this was dropped because of the community opposition. So this we held meetings with panchayat head, community leaders, and GCC officials. So this we explained. We had made a model, and this is how we explained that, what the structure was that was coming up there. But due to various reasons, that it was also a part of their village, and they had some certain activities happening which were mandatory, which could not be moved to some other location, because of which they held oppositions, and we had to drop this location. So there are projects that we also drop. We have to drop when we engage with the community. So this is what happens when. So when we know that people there don't want it, we will not be able to force on them, which will lead to other sort of outbreak and all of it. So right now we have it happening in another location, which is I'm sorry. So we have this happening in another location near Gandhi statue in Marina Beach. So this is the proposed location that this pathway is going to come up shortly. All the work is underway, but it's still not started on the ground due to this lockdown and all of those. So post that it might start anytime soon. So after this, yeah, so this is the projects that I got opportunities to work on in UDC, some of the projects, and some key learnings that I would like to highlight and which would help you in the process while designing in colleges. There is so much beyond just designing on papers. When we execute on the ground, especially in a project, the stakeholders, the material choices, it is so much after designing on paper. So that is one key learning. It allowed me to understand the process and how to basically go about a particular project. Second thing is communicating the design. So when we have meetings, community meetings with different people, it is very important to communicate the design according to the user group. It is not just about making plan section elevation always. So it is very, so for example, if you noted, in some places we had renderings, in some places we had models, in certain cases we just showed photographs. So it also depends. So based on your previous, it could be your focus group discussions, or it could be the initial mapping, you will be able to assess on what could be an ideal tool to communicate, show them the ideas of this project. And it is always important to be cautious about the cost and environmental aspects. So again, public space projects, like it has to be cost effective. It is not always about using uh, very high-end materials. It's about the need. If it is needed, yes, it is very important. And all the designs, as far as possible, are to be inclusive for all the users without any separation. And material choices. So again, imported materials should be used only if required, because considering the operation and maintenance. So for example, in public spaces, there are very high chances that it might get broken. So when something is broken, it should be easy for the people to change it, and the operation and maintenance should be simple. Another important thing is striking balance between all the aspects and stakeholders. So for example, in the beach project, if you noted, there were various aspects, various constraints So we had to strike a balance between to develop the design and also balance all the stakeholders. So since there was opposition from the community, we couldn't execute the project. And then this was pushed forward for another location, and we got the approval. And that's how so many back and forth also happens. So there is a lot of patience that is required. And so yeah, this is the professional, when all these were the projects that I got to work on as a part of UDC. Before that, how I started, I just, this is a quick overview of all those. So this is again a community initiated project in Tiruchi, which is initiated by Citizens for Vardhan. So there we got this opportunity to design this playscape when I was a part of Anthill Creations before joining UDC. So here, this was an abandoned site on one corner of, it's actually a canal front. So here, this was it changed to be like this after the flyover construction, and it was abandoned. So the citizens came forward to activate these spaces. They had done open gyms and all on one side, and they wanted to build this park. So we had done this particular sustainable playscape on this particular site. So here, this playscape was designed. It was a low-cost playscape which was designed with recycled tires in a way which Antil actually experiments. So we wanted to make sure it was cost effective. Also, again, these are also very quick to install on site. All these are made on site, and it takes very less time for us to complete the project when compared to anything. And today we could see a lot of people using this actively in Trichy. So, and then before starting in college, what are the other projects that I was involved in is when I was the UD, again, this was also for NASA. We had this opportunity to build a low-cost bus shelter with all the locally available materials. Though this looks like a temporary structure, it was very stable and it lasted for at least 2 years. And it was later removed because they wanted to widen the road. The structure was still very strong, and this was done with all my college, including seniors, juniors, all of us together developed this and built it. So this is a very simple framework that we used with Caserina, and then inter tiles were made with chicken mesh and eucalyptus leaves, and that was put together so that it doesn't let water come inside the shelter, and seating was added with wooden planks. So this was in college, and then NASA. So what we wanted, as we have this opportunity to realize it is always possible, like as being in a fraternity that gets to work a lot with society, it is very important for students to contribute towards the society. So here we also have this problem of awareness of what architecture is and art services. So we felt this could be an opportunity to take architecture to and its services to the public, also to make students understand that it is always important to contribute towards the society in whatever ways possible. So this was an attempt to initiate that dialogue, and we saw close to 379 entries being transformed across the country. So this was a project that we wanted to start, and it had a wide range of projects. It spread across various states, various cities, and it had various types of interventions that it started with. And now I've been fortunate to work with Center for Living Cities and NASA India. So again, we wanted to continue this dialogue. And so previously, Center for Living Cities and UDC had this uh, thing of observe a program for school kids to engage and connect them to the surroundings. But I felt this was very interesting for college students. And then through UDC, we wanted to take this to NASA. So this is right now happening for students who are interested to make changes and are very passionate about improving their built environment, neighborhood, or the city. They can check this out and start. So all the changes begin from us. So, and it's very much possible to start making changes at college level. Yeah. So
Okay, it was a
that's
great piece of presentation, which is giving a lot of information about our urban design program, which we have in college, to have a real good startup and to understand how we can take that forward, even in the curriculum, if it is going to be. So starting, Anna, hello. Yeah, okay. So starting with the first project of City also, how was the process as in right from taking any water bodies being in any city, which is always neglected to and also promoted as another realistic ground. How was the process when it was taken to the stakeholders, or how was it viewed?
Users of Silseri.
Yes, the lake itself.
Yeah, so they had a social connect with the lake as you saw the uses. So they were very happy to see because the water table was also decreasing.
Mm-hmm.
So when this change was proposed, they were very happy and welcoming to see this. There are other reasons like a Sipcot also consuming water from this, and they do not use it for agriculture purposes today. So the only thing was leisure activities. So they were also very excited because the last time they had this opportunity was in 2015 during floods when
Mm-hmm.
it was filled with water. And again, that time also there were some issues. There were several other activities that were happening in the lake which they didn't want to see. So when this whole thing was taken in forward, the entire village was very supportive and welcoming for this particular change. Since they had that connect, a lot of them have been continuously interacting with the lake, and they were very welcoming for this change.
Okay, now actually we also have two more questions just lined up in our chat, if we could say so. We can get started with it. So
Which
it is
one?
Shri Haryana.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, how do you ensure these interventions are maintained properly for a longer term run? Okay, which of these projects are you referring to as small interventions?
Uh, uh, Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah. No. You're
Yeah,
audible now.
I was actually mentioning generally, like if you're telling about the beach project,
Okay.
the pathways. So in
Okay.
such a case, for example, you were also mentioning that in case if it gets damaged, we use local materials so that it could be repaired. So how do you ensure, like from an architect side or from UBC, like the main contractor side, how do you ensure those projects has been maintained for a longer run? Even if you take maybe for example, if you take the first project which you explained, uh, maybe you would have done there are like few interventions which will have a greater impact on the society, but due to long run it won't last basically. So how do you ensure that those interventions has been carried out properly or maintained properly? That's my question in a general way.
Okay. So in my opinion, first thing is the material choices. You need to be very careful with the material choices and choose a material that is strong enough at first place. And second thing is you also need to. So when you involve the whole community, you can. So at a policy level or at a capacity building level, when you involve the community as a part of the execution, or when you make them feel some ownership towards the place, there are some chances that there are very less chances that they will want to disrupt something in place. That is all. So when they use, like for example, if you're using a park and if something is going, somebody's taking over that, you will have that connect and you will want to stop them from taking it, right? So if we are able to develop some part of capacity building by making them connect to the spaces that we develop, maybe we can stop. But again, if say for example, if somebody purposely does it, there are certain things beyond a designer's control. Not everything can be controlled by us, so then we will be forced to replace. As far as possible, material choices need to be very. So if it's a temporary element, it is fine, you can experiment a lot. But again, when it comes to permanent design, beach is a permanent pathway, so it's actually a semi-permanent structure. Only thing, it can't be removed by anybody on any day. In case if the corporation decides to, for some major reason, then that is when they will be able to dismantle it.
Okay, okay.
Yes. Okay. There is another question.
Yes.
Why those vibrant colors? Won't they disturb the pleasant feel of the street? What about going with material textures? Okay. So this, it, I'm not sure how is it possible to have material textures when it is being done at a temporary level. Secondly, the whole idea of this to use vibrant colors was to make an appeal to the people. So when you extend the footpaths, it needs to be very attractive such that they use it. It is basically, since you're initiating a change and it is not possible, it has so many users and it's not possible for you to sit and tell them that okay, use this and all of this. So only after execution, yes, we had the support of media where they talked about all of this across their news channels and all of it. But still, it is very important to make it attractive so that people look at it. It needs to gather some attention. That's one reason why we wanted to make it attractive, and people actually also like when things are very attractive. Like maybe as designers we feel sometimes we have to restrict our material and color palette, but here in case of tactical urbanism, it is very attractive and vibrant and people actually enjoy such things.
Okay, now. So from the other side, we also have some questions from our students, which is also taking us to a question where we've also done, like any college in any architecture will take us through a process of rurals and then urban. In both the cases, we also start documenting. We also have this public contact, like we go take surveys and come. But when we come back to the college and we start designing, that is the part which we actually lose track, and then we start doing something else which we feel is right according to whatever our studies is teaching. So how to show that the studies which you've taken has taken all your projects forward, rather than it was not your wish or your want or the entire community of architects or the builders to put that design into that space. So how, I just want a piece of word or an understanding to make this very effective.
So it is a process, right? It's a gradual process that you develop. So some of it could arrive based on your mapping. So for example, in the mapping that you saw, there was no shading, and then we decided, okay, shading was a need, and this was backed up by the survey. So your questionnaires need to be very focused. It can't be a general questionnaire. So you also need to understand it is very important to not keep some random person engaged for a longer time, which they would not prefer. So your surveys need to be very focused, and the mapping also should be carried on in such a way that you focus on what is important and not just like how we generally do our basic mapping, building heights, and we shouldn't stop it there. We also have to understand what, like we'll have to basically map all the users. Like for example, I felt this was too long, so I couldn't add some more slides. So we had this whole mapping exercise where we had mapped to that extent of existing utility poles, electric poles on site. We had marked all the vendors. So a complete study. We had also taken various counts. So it is, I feel, the extent of your mapping, on ground study, and surveys will actually help in backing up the design solution. So this is one difference that I have personally have felt. In college, our surveys were very random. It was very general, a basic survey, and so what we do is most of the times, like for us, we had done our rurals in Vellore and my college was in Ooty. So we didn't have a pilot study. So what you can do as one session is you test these surveys on ground and see and make necessary changes and accordingly continue with the survey. And it is also good if you can keep going back and forth to check, basically put all your data together, see if it is making sense. If you see something is missing, then you will have to make you'll have to address that. So for example, we saw in Silseri, we noted that people are more comfortable with focus group discussion than personal interviews. So then we chose to focus more on focus group discussion. So you will have to, basically it's a process of putting together whatever you have observed, whatever you have understood from the site, your stakeholders, and you will have to make certain changes required. You can't. So when you are doing, say for example, in a this lake restoration project, the questions also need to relate to what it is, and you'll have to have an understanding of what it is. So in place where there is no site, if you're going to have questions like would it be nice to have a stadium, it doesn't make any sense. So the questionnaire should be very focused.
Okay, now. And one more question, which would be, how do you ensure sustainability in the use of public spaces on the long run, if it is going to be a sustainable approach?
public spaces on long run, or do you mean urban transportation, urban planning level?
If in any public intervention, if there is some sustainable approach is taken forward, how to ensure that it is still sustainable and is still very active and proactive in its own use?
Okay, so this I feel can be answered in two different cases. One is at an urban planning scale. So what is more sustainable? Use of non-motorized transports is more sustainable. So if uh, your streets can have that equal distribution of right of way for pedestrians, cyclists, public transport. So also last mile connectivity with for public transport stations. Then it encourages people to use public transport and non-motorized transport. So if there is a very well designed footpath with adequate shade in our context, most of us would like to use this at least for commute that is walkable. We'll prefer to walk as a mode of transport. So that is how we can make it sustainable. Like all it flyovers are never solutions for traffic jams. It's all sustainable approaches to emphasize and develop the public transport infrastructure. And a lot of people have also said the city is developed only when rich people use public transport. So that is at an urban planning level, we can make sure it's sustainable in that way. But apart from that, implementing on site at urban design level, it will also depend on what is the materials that we are using and the construction technique that we are going to use. But see, again, at the end of it, you can't enforce sustainability on someone. It has to be a gradual process. So what we can do is we can initiate from our side whatever are things in our control. We can we can adapt to it, and gradually we can hope everybody else joins in the conversation.
Okay, okay. I guess Sri Haryana has a few questions, so if you can unmute him.
And there are actually some
Yeah.
other questions on the chart also.
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes.
Yes, very good.
No,
Krishna
we'll
Priya,
finish that
this
first
is
because
Deepa here.
Deepa ma'am is here. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi, ma'am.
Hi,
Hi.
ma'am.
Srivardhan, I'm really happy. Starting there, I have heard about the entire presentation. I was there. Okay.
Thank you
Very
so
good
much.
job. I'm very, very happy. And for others, I just wanted to know, like, I met Srihari in 2014 when he was in second year. And his growth and the graph what I'm seeing now shows the consistency and interest what he had. And then apart from all these the presentation, I would like to ask one general question, Vardhan.
Yes, ma'am.
It will be really nice for the students if you tell how you got interest into this public participation and then urban design, because I remember you discussing your thesis with me. If I'm not wrong, that is the first stage where you started involving in all these kind of activities. And I think that consistency is still maintained and you are focusing yourself in those particular, even if it is an ANDC, when you were the heading NASA, you took an initiative to address public issues. And then as a continuation of the project in Bangalore also, you are working in those similar lines. So once you answer this question, I will just brief the relationship between, I always say the students in 5 years of architecture, even if you don't learn architecture, there is something else to learn. So if you just tell the journey from your thesis till date, just a quick recap, like how you went about, what interested you to take the thesis product, and then how you ended up in working in UDC.
Sure. Yes. So actually, for initially it was with the opportunities. So NASA definitely plays a very important role. And then when you were HOD also, we had this opportunity to do the bus shelter. And if you remember the paint and help which we did for that school in Perar. So all of this before architecture also, I personally love Chennai a lot. So that helped me connect with, like, have the connect towards a city. And then when doing all these projects, it was with the college and NASA, we realized that it is very important to also do something. It kept us very like, even if we had to work, we after college hours, and if we had to do this during weekends, it was very interesting to take up such things. So it was very happy when people were supportive to do such things. And this also actually brings some amount of interest in managements, because their name is also being taken out. And this was the initial step. And then it was after that was NASA. So where we saw we had this so the potential of students in NASA is tremendous. Like, there are 60,000 students at any point, and if we had to bring about a change, it was definitely possible, because the network was very strong. So we thought, and that was also our 60th year. So we wanted to come up with a unique way to mark that milestone. So we thought, let's do this by transforming unused public spaces. As I also mentioned earlier, we wanted two things. One was to initiate that intent of contributing towards the society amongst all the students, and the second thing was to take architecture outside to common man and make them understand of what it is. So looking at the entries, like we had 379 entries, and I was personally present when the jury happened also. It actually was very, very uh, impressive. Like, when we saw that, okay, this many things, and we found that there are so many such spaces, like spaces under flyovers and all of this. So this was also happening on one side. So this, and parallelly was the urban design studio in college. So the way the project evolved, though that was at the college level, at very academic, it was very interesting when I saw, okay, there is a way of how you can bring design in public scale, and how we can go about doing all of that. So with that, with UD, it made me sure that, okay, I will want to take up pieces at an urban scale, and that's why I chose urban square around Central, which again has been like always in the newspapers. And it was something that I always felt, okay, that we can try doing something here. This could be nice. All this started only through all the other projects and activities that happened in college. Before college, I had no idea of urban design or how we can work at city scales without being an administrative representative. So then, post thesis, I initially I had to finish NASA being an advisor also. So I didn't want to take up a hardcore architectural firm. So that's why I chose Anthill. But that didn't mean there was no work there. It was more hard, because it was mostly on site and it kept me away from NASA again. But that was that. So I got to work on different projects across the country, at least 20 different playscapes in schools. So that opened up a thought that, play is something that is not being given. It's like, the opportunities that we had to play is not there for children today, because most of them end up using mobiles and whatever. And in government schools, and in high density low income settlements, there is no opportunity for playscapes, or it is not properly designed. It's a very prototype design and all of this. So they are the opportunity for play for them is very less. So Anthill is on this mission of making playscapes across the country. So this, when we were done in Anthill, we extended this by making playscapes in public spaces also. So post that, towards the end of NASA, I got this opportunity to join UDC, and I was always looking forward to the work done by Vidya ma'am and UDC, because of which I joined UDC. And since then, it's been like massive learning, from what was learned in college to what is happening on ground in UD, the different scales, the different set of projects. It's been very interesting, and it's always been a learning.
Thank you, Srihari. I mean, thank you, Vardhan.
Thank you for this opportunity. C
No,
team
no,
is
it is
actually
not.
doing a very nice opportunity.
Actually, this is by the students, for the students, and to the students. I don't know what I'm doing here, but out of curiosity, I just wanted to meet Srihari. I just wanted to meet Srivardhan. I don't know. I think there is a bonding with all the NASA fellows. I always have. I'm keeping in touch right from the beginning. Be it Sai Krishna, be it Srihari, be it Sabarish, or whoever it is. I think I am having, good rapport with them, and then it is continuing till date. maybe it is the personal interest or whatever it is. Now, I asked Srivardhan, for the others who are there in the forum, I just asked this question. Many of you, I don't know, willingly or unwillingly, you would have joined architecture. And in the first year, we will be putting a question before you stating, write one page write-up. Why did you join architecture? Something like that, we will be just threatening you guys. But willingly or unwillingly, you will be writing a one-page write-up. But I'll always tell you, third year is a turning point. That is when you will decide whether you want to do something really, orienting yourself towards architecture. But the gift of this course is, it won't force you to do this or that, or you have to go in this particular direction or that particular direction. It won't give you. You will have a wide range of opportunities which will be lying in front of you. It is you who have to choose it wisely. So I have seen so many students who decide that I want to do this, and then they still continue. Only thing, you have to be focused and you have to be passionate about what you're doing. So that I just wanted to, emphasize that in this forum for all the other students, because it is not that one night he has decided to work on this and then he's doing this. For the past few months or few years, with the interaction I had with Srivardhan, he has been talking about this for so long. He has been involved in these kind of activities for so long, which means the consistency what he has. Similarly, I can give the example of Srihari. As of now, he has discussed with me regarding the construction of his own home. He wanted to give it to somebody else. I told very clearly, being an architecture student, why do you want to give it to somebody else? It is your own house. You can experiment in whatever manner. I think, if I'm not wrong, from that point, and he has joined a conservation firm now. So that shows that he has got some direction in mind, be it his thesis project, the Girivalam project. He has some orientation towards what he wants to do. So my only point is, I want to highlight this point, stating that you may not be knowing what you want to do when you are in first year or second year, but third year, definitely in one corner of your mind, it will be there, be it photography, be it fashion, or be it whatever it is, but definitely you will get a hint. Try to follow that, and then choose a right direction, and then you will be in the right path. There won't be any kind of turning back, and then you will be doing really well. Only thing, the determination and passion is most important. I just wanted I suggested this guy to you people, because the consistency what I'm seeing for the past 6 years. So that made me like, okay, fine, let us just have a discussion with this person, so that you people will know, like, beyond studies, whatever he has stated now, it is not a presentation which involves an urban design project. It is much more than that. What you can give back to the society. Krishna Priya was asking a question like, in the first beginning, how it is going to be sustainable or something like that. Public participation, as Vardhan told in the beginning, you cannot design something which you wish, and then you cannot just give it to them, take it. So it won't work like that. So that is what is all about. And then when I'm talking about passion, I will just wind up with this. There is one person who is highly passionate in this forum. One more person who can turn into a resource person is architect Bala Hari Krishnan. Hope you are online.
Hello, ma'am.
Bala? How are you,
Yeah,
Bala?
ma'am. Yeah, ma'am, I'm fine, ma'am.
Actually, I was about to invite you as a resource person for these people, but luckily you are here. So,
Oh,
Krishna
that's
Priya,
surprising.
Akshaya, Sai Teja, பாத்துக்கோங்க, இவர் ஒரு சரியான resource person. It is your duty to extract the maximum out of him. So, Bala, I'm happy to see you here.
Oh, that's fine. ரொம்ப சர்ப்ரைசிங்கா இருக்கு மேம் நீங்க சொல்றது. ஆக்சுவலா இந்த இனிஷியேஷன் பார்த்தோன்னே நான் சரி ஜாயின் பண்ணலாம் அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு தான் ஃபர்ஸ்ட் 2 லெக்சர்.
அவங்க என்ன தெரியுமா பண்ணுவாங்க, வாட்ஸ்அப்ல ஃப்ளோட் பண்ணும்போதே பை த ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ், ஃபார் த ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ், டு த ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ்னு போடுவாங்களா. நம்ம ஸ்டாஃபா இருக்கோமா, அதனால நான் உள்ள போக மாட்டேன்.
இல்ல மேம், அப்படினாலும் we are still in learning mode, அவ்வளவுதான். அந்த ஒரு ரீசனுக்காக ஜாயின்.
I will tell you very frankly, நான் லோயர் செமஸ்டர்ஸ் போறதுக்கு முக்கியமான காரணம் என்னன்னா, I will learn something from them. Each and every batch teaches me something. ஏதாவது ஒண்ணு கத்துக்குவேன். எனக்கு ரொம்ப அதனாலதான் ஹையர் செமஸ்டர்ஸ் போறதை விட லோயர் செமஸ்டர்ஸ் ரொம்ப ப்ரிஃபர் பண்றதுக்கு காரணமே பிகாஸ் ஆஸ் யூ செட் வி ஆர் ஸ்டில் இன் த லேர்னிங் ப்ராசஸ். ஸோ நான் எப்பயுமே ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸாக தான் நினச்சிக்குவேன். ஸோ திஸ் பீப்புள் ஆர் ஸ்ட்ரிக்ட்லி போர்ட்ரேயிங் பை த ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ் ஃபார் த ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ் இன்னைக்கு. Anyway, I wanted
not
to
at all, ma'am. With your guidance, only by, for, and to the students can action. Kandipa, ma'am.
Exactly.
Okay.
Your
Vardhan,
Yes, ma'am.
நீங்க இப்ப ரீசெண்டா அந்த ப்ராஜெக்ட் which you completed and then which got selected, did you discuss about that or it is a part of the presentation? I think I didn't see that project.
The scholarship presentation. Actually, அது இங்க ஆட் பண்ணல மேம், பிகாஸ் அதோட ப்ராசஸ் வந்து இப்போ whatever we have right now is based on the previous.
இல்ல நீங்க ஆட் பண்ண வேண்டாம், இல்ல ஆட் பண்ண வேணாம். you can, because fourth years நிறைய பேர் லைன்ல இருக்காங்கன்னு நினைக்கிறேன். It will be helpful for them, they can join with you and then you can use them. It will be an exposure because they'll be doing their next dissertation next semester. So a part of your this thing will be helpful. என்னடா இங்க வந்து academics சொல்றாளேன்னு பார்க்காதீங்க. ஆக்சுவலி இந்த மாதிரி பண்ணாதான் எங்களுக்கு வந்து எப்படின்னா ஐ வாண்டட் இப்ப பார்த்தோன்னே அவங்களுக்கு தெரிஞ்சிருக்கும் இது வந்து போரிங் கிடையாது. டிசர்டேஷன் கேன் ஆல்சோ பி மேட் இன்ட்ரெஸ்டிங். இட் இஸ் ஒன்லி ஹவ் யூ ஆர் கோயிங் டு யூட்டிலைஸ் த டேட்டா அப்படிங்கிறது தான். ஸோ அது வந்து என்ன மாதிரி, பிகாஸ் தி பீப்புள் கேன் ஆல்சோ லுக் ஃபார் சச் கைண்ட் ஆஃப் காம்படேட்டிவ் ப்ராஜெக்ட்ஸ். ஸோ தட் அண்ட் ஒன் மோர் திங், இவங்களோட கான்டாக்ட்ஸ் நீ எடுத்துட்டேன்னா ஃபார் யுவர் this thing projects also it will be helpful. As you said, students power மாதிரி வேற எதுவுமே நமக்கு வந்து மேன் பவர் வந்து ரிலையபிளா கிடைக்காது. It's a reliable source and then there won't be any fake so can you just brief about that project?
Sure. I'll give an introduction of what the project is and how it is. I didn't want to make a presentation because it'll not be correct to make a presentation before.
No. I just wanted to, even if you don't mention the name of the project, you can just tell what kind of competition projects are available online, which is happening around, so that these people will be at least looking into that. ஏன்னா இவங்களுக்கு தெரிஞ்சது எல்லாமே இந்த 121 hours ப்ராஜெக்ட் அந்த மாதிரி காம்படிஷன் ப்ராஜெக்ட்ஸ் தான் இவங்களுக்கு எல்லாமே they are exposed to. Live projects வந்து they are in 4th years, right? So it will be helpful for them to take an initiative now.
Sure. So this is actually ethos along with St. Globin, that they have a scholarship where they offer an amount of 1 lakh with which we can bring about making a change in the society. Anything, whatever it could be, an architectural innovation. So they don't have a set brief of what it should be. It can be anything, but only thing is you'll have to express your interest in the requirements that they have mentioned, and then you get selected, and based on that they will call you for an interview, and if you're selected you get that scholarship to implement your design. So it has to be 100% implementable. So they look into those aspects of what new or what you're going to do, and that is one thing that we had applied for, and we are fortunate to get an opportunity to do that now. So again, this is also a compilation of what we are doing. So Anthill experience taught me that play is not there for everybody, and UDC experience is teaching me how to engage with the community and develop the design. So we thought putting both of these together, we were able to develop a proposal called Cities for Play, which is also an upcoming concept where NIUA, National Institute of Urban Affairs, is trying to push this forward. And all of this is happening. They have developed the manuals and guidebooks on how this has to be done. But apart from that, it is not being taken up in a larger scale. So all the parks, most parks are prototyped, and it ends up not being used. So this is about making the neighborhoods playful. So encouraging kids to walk and basically to participate in their community, come together, and all of this. That was the project. Apart from this, there are so many other projects that allow an opportunity with some seed money that allows you to see your designs executed. So that is one. And then again, here with NASA and Center for Living Cities and UDC, we are doing this OAN, where it's Observation and Action Network, where for those who are very much interested in making changes and making an impact to your surroundings, your city, your neighborhood, you can it's also the process and everything is detailed out. So I see a question with OAN. Due to lockdown, they are not able to do much. Is there any steps taken by NASA regarding this, like extension of dates or something? this I will not be able to answer here. It will be better if you can put it forward to your unit secretary, and we will communicate with the NASA council, and they will let you know about this. So there are so many. There is also Doshi One Foundation, which allows you to see some. All these are scholarship and fellowship based things, which allows you, like students and young professionals, to see their ideas executed on the ground. Apart from that, you can also take up some like the bus shelter project. That was also for NASA. It was a very low cost project that we could do for the community. So it depends on what you observe and what you want to do. There are a lot of opportunities. At least we are starting to get some more opportunities.
Okay, now thank you so much, ma'am, for letting us know all these things through Anna, though we didn't have a beforehand of knowing this. So there's also another question, Anna, from Gayatri Krishnamurthy.
How will you bring awareness to a community who don't even consider about the issue or know that such problem exists? Can you give some suggestions? Okay. So, is this person online? Is this pertaining
yes.
to a particular scene or?
Okay,
in general, it it could be handled with community, like basically capacity building, showing them what is right, showing them where. So we'll have to have a detailed study of what is going wrong or what is the issue. So if they are not able to see an issue, and if you think it is an issue, you will have to get the basic study and numbers right to show what is going wrong, and build their capacities to understand that they need this to be changed or fixed. So that is how we will be able to do this, and this will definitely take a long time, and it's not like across the table change that can happen.
I guess that person is getting connected now. Yeah,
okay,
I guess she's there. Gayatri, are you there?
Hello.
Yeah.
I'm there. Thank you, Anna. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay. And so now again, Shriana had mentioned that he has some few more questions. So
Hi, Na. So actually, one of the question was this thing: how would we proceed with if you come across such projects like எப்படி சொல்லணும் வந்து if a normal architecture student generally if you go like சில points பார்க்கும்போது or some nodes or some junctions பார்க்கும்போது we would think like இது வந்து ஒரு ப்ராப்பரான டிசைன் பண்ண முடியுமேன்ற ஒரு ஆப்ஷன் இருக்கும். So actually you answered this question just before, but since I was mentioning, I'm just doing that. So இந்த மாதிரி பிளாட்ஃபார்ம்ஸ் தவிர லைக் ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள் யூ ஹவ் மென்ஷன் ஃபியூ பிளாட்ஃபார்ம்ஸ், இது தவிர ஒரு நார்மல் ஜெனரல் ஆர்கிடெக்ட் ஸ்டூடெண்ட் ஆர் பாஸ் அவுட் யங் ஆர்கிடெக்ட், how do he proceed in this thing? So if for example if I wish to do something for the society, even if it's a small scale, how should I proceed? Like what is according to you like?
So when I think when you had ANDC, you just told that we are doing this for ANDC, so just forget that. You basically have to go to the ground, tell the people that like only if it's needed. You can't force something on them. So you can talk to the people, and then you can evolve this. You can also check this Matunga flyover in Mumbai, which is completely evolved through over more than 2-3 years. That completely transformed with public participation. The space under that flyover has been transformed. So it is, you can bring your community together. It can be a set of students together trying to make this change. And first, once you have this interest, then you can approach the authorities for permission. At a student level, you have this advantage where you can also take support from your management, who might be if they are interested, they might be able to help. They might help you to connect with the administrative authorities who might be interested in supporting. So it is not always it works when we directly go to the administrative authorities. So it requires some amount of thing. This Matunga flyover is actually completely done by the community. So they have also followed a similar approach. The space below was unused. Then the entire community came together to foreseeing a change there, based on which they held tactical experiments of. So basically, these tactical experiments are also used to activate spaces and show people what it is actually potential of. So based on that, they now, I think Mumbai Municipal Corporation and all of them have come together to transform that entire space under the flyover, which was also initiated by the community. So if you, I think with set of passionate people, until for instance also started like that. Their first project was when they were in college. They built a playscape with waste materials that they had, scrap materials, and today it has turned an NGO, and I think they have transformed more than 150 playscapes across the country, mostly in public schools and few in public spaces also.
Okay. Now one more question. Sorry, like I've been
No
asking
problem.
more questions because I'm so much interested towards this communal designs. ஒரு general question என்னன்னா, like ஒரு general doubt இருக்குது. For example, இந்த slum redevelopment projects or அந்த மாதிரி ஏதாவது projects இருக்கும்போது, always I maybe நான் பார்க்கறதா இருக்கலாம், my perspective, always I see like அது கட்டி முடிச்சிட்ட அப்புறம் we are trying to redesign it or we are trying to make that it actually merges with the people. அது ஏன் வந்து அந்த கட்டுறதுக்கு டைம்ல why don't it happens like why do they build a box and then we try to do an extra work on it? Where is that lag happening? For general any communal spaces, generally what I observe is it won't come out as a good product. So generally just for like if you're taking some government school, initially it won't be like that good. Then some architect has to come, some NGO has to come, they have to redesign on it, then to make it more attractive or more better space. Why does that happen? Like where is the lag?
Okay, I am not sure how this is something that you'll have to ask the government official. But what I have observed is they are not. Sometimes they are not aware of what it can be, or they also have other constraints. Sometimes they are also not interested. Sometimes they have other financial constraints. So I also feel architecture is very less known, and this part of architecture is very less known. So when we like if I am given an opportunity, if any of us are given an opportunity to show what architecture is to common man, like when we start utilizing that more and more, people will be more familiar with our works, and there are high possibilities that they might come up with this. So, and if you are engaged as a consultant to work with them, and if they are not completely up for what you're suggesting, then you will have to work your ways around, develop tools, and engage them to build their capacity of what and how this would be beneficial through various means, various tools, and make them understand of what would be the difference. This is certain things that we have done so far, but again, I am not sure if this is a question that we can answer. It's more on
Yeah, I understand. I just
government.
want to know your perspective because since you're working on that, obviously. Thank you, now.
So it
And
all
I
happens
just
with-
want to, yeah, yes, ma'am.
So projects are initiated by different people, by different things. So, for example, that Coimbatore project, if you notice, it had GXZ, GFA. So they have larger MOUs signed with the government of India and all of those. So then it also depends on who is handling the project. So they wanted to do this, and it is initiated. So it is. I think it all takes time to develop all of this. And most of it, we also realize some of them are not aware of such things. It is a new subject for them. NMT, no city, at least in Tamil Nadu right now, has an NMT cell, non-motorized car. So and, there is a very vague misconception that flyovers are solutions for traffic issues. Flyovers are temporary solutions, and the amount of amount spent on it is massive. So there are other ways, but most of even I didn't know this till I joined UDC that there are other ways, and how we could go about the other ways of tackling all those. And all of this is a gradual process. Like we overnight we can't go and demolish all the flyovers and say this is not correct. It needs to happen slowly.
And I also like to thank Deepa ma'am. Like ma'am, it was like a surprise. Like you are here throughout the session. I just want to just point out that ma'am, I actually am very amazed that you still remember the point because she was my staff at that time. I had one small design on a paper and I have to run. I have to go and ask her like, I'm the proper ma'am because I'm just a student and is that really worth of designing something? And she's I also mentioned on my session first initially, she's the one who pushed me like, okay, nee pannama yaro veedu pannuva, nee pannama yaar kattukka. That's how she pushed me, and I think she's very happy. I can feel that she's actually really happy for her C team, because she was always there at the back, and she was always when I still remember once it was like a break time or interval time in our college. In our notice board, I was sticking the seed poster. Like I was alone, I was sticking there, and all of a sudden, when I turned back, there was Deepa ma'am standing behind, and she was like smiling. So that smile had all the meaning, like all the result what I was expecting. So thank you so much, ma'am. And in between, you came, and it's been a amazing thing, ma'am. Thank you so much.
No, it's my pleasure, Srihari. I always like my students grow in front of me, and then it will be a pleasure for me to share the platform where you people are interacting. So I think it's my pleasure. And then, as I always say, really happy to see people grow more and more. The clarity with which Vardhan presented today, I am really happy. I'm really happy about it. And then that is why I just wanted to, okay, fine, a small help from my side if it is really mattering a lot for you guys. So it is always there, and that will be a bonus point, or that makes me to grow and do much more towards the students community. That is always there. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
It's always been your support, especially during UD times when it was very hard. We were very fortunate to have you.
No, that time actually there was no shape at all for a NASA body there. So actually it was good that you took it up, and then I think now there is a small niche which has been created especially by MeCgan students in the platform of NASA. I don't know. That is really, I think the credit goes to you and your team.
The whole college and faculties, actually a lot of faculties, Deepa ma'am and even my UD staffs were very like they helped me feel more connected with the urban design, like all the community based projects. Deepa ma'am obviously started with all these projects, encouraging all of this, and UD staffs, they were very, we had a few people from, I think we had one person from IIT who helped us talk about. So used to talk about them numbers, which was also very interesting. Like it was a puzzle which made me more interested towards urban design.
Thank you, now. So some more questions from the student side, which I have it in my hand. I will just read it out. Does the stigma against certain groups affect the use of public spaces, access to the public services, like based on gender, social hierarchy, etc.?
So this has to be dealt with design. Stigma, see, social stigma is something that you can't always do through design, but at least in the spaces that you are doing, make sure it is properly dealt with, and you have something for all the user groups. It's not possible to deal with all the social stigmas through design. It's what we actually, this is one recent thing. One of my friends had worked on running another thesis, and there were several social stigmas attached to it. To looking at his thesis, we also understood that it is not possible to always tackle everything through design. But at the beginning, if it's a complete greenfield development, yes, there are ways of how we can handle and make it inclusive for all the people across all the sections of the society. And that's also when a place is healthy.
Okay. And going to the next question. Which aspect of public spaces and its designing process will drastically change in wake of the pandemic that we are facing today?
Okay. This is something that I've not thought of. Okay. Public spaces in this pandemic. No, I have not really thought of to answer this question. I'm sorry, but I think public spaces, the more like density of area concentration. Like for example, if you take our low-income settlements that are built by communal clearance road, at times is very high dense. So and without any common spaces for gathering. So if it is well distributed density, if it is well distributed, maybe we can avoid spreading of such pandemics than in just a high rise. Like in case Dharavi, where we have it was scared a lot because of the density of population.
So since you added up this Dharavi point, I also had another question, which is also in line with it. What are the basic requirements when a body is set up to design a city? Like, what is it that we missed along the wrong run? And what is the impact of that ignorance? Like, since you said putting a hierarchy and then putting the lower income group in one part of the city. Now, during this pandemic, it is also causing a lot of issues. Now, they are looking for some other mandapams or somewhere which is helping them have some other isolation ward or something like that. So what is that element which you would say?
So this pandemic wise, I think it exposes a lot of requirements that are to be addressed by the government in terms of
Right.
their initiative to focus on health infrastructure and all of those, which is not something that we can do much about. But yeah, I think so. In different cases, so in Chennai, there are various reasons of how the slums have been allocated basically. So
Mm-hmm.
people have moved from having moved from different places to the resettled location, or it has been due to different reasons: availability of land, political scenarios, distribution of all sections of people, and all of those. So here the problem is the growth is very rapid and it is happening in a very not as how we want to see. So, like for instance, recently we had this opportunity to study of 3 or 4 different corporations, and we noticed Ahmedabad has corporation, I mean a development authority and also an enforcement authority, like they call it TP scheme and all of this. So, it the government needs to address, like, apart from making plans, enforcement also becomes very crucial, and public consultation during making plans is very important. Like for instance, I think in Chennai we had this public consultation that I knew was about which I could attend also, was about the BRTS corridors that were proposed. And in that public consultation, it was brought to their notice that some of these corridors are already where metro is proposed. So there is no point in investing in public infrastructure there. So if public consultation in making plans by the development authority and enforcing that is also very important.
So we see quite more questions on the chat box, starting from Ritika.
Okay. Apart from addressing public issues and urban design, what else is your field of interest in architecture? So when I joined UBC, they were working on a sustainable, eco-friendly house, eco-friendly low-cost housing. That was very interesting, and that sustainable architecture is something that I like. Sustainable practices, like very small changes that you can make, which will have a larger impact. For example, the rat trap bond, filler slab, and all of these that we use. That is one very interesting thing that I have liked outside urban design. Otherwise, it's mostly urban design and community-based projects. Seeing since you've been in Asa India and had the opportunity to observe colleges around the country, what did you think the most important thing that all should follow? Okay. So, what is the most important thing? This is very difficult. Like one, okay. Important thing that we have noticed in colleges is something, a lot of people. So this is, I'll give you a set of answers. I have a lot of answers for this. People who join architecture are not interested, so it becomes very important to orient. As ma'am also mentioned, like till third year there needs to be some patience to identify what are the fields that might interest you. So, and there is no point in doing something just for the sake of doing it. And it is, I don't think we should just focus on, like, creating, getting marks and clearing, getting the degree. It is more than this, because that whatever we do there is not the end. It's more, a lot more that happens on the ground. It is so much different when we experience things on the ground. So a lot of patience is required, and just by focusing on numbers is not going to help. And always stay as architecture, if we have to make an impact, we have to make some difference in what we are practicing, and sustainability and all these uh, things that we have. We should probably, like for example, why is it still under exploration? What if rat trap is the basic construction technique which replaces Flemish and English one? So all these kind of values that I know a group of people who are civil engineers who went to Lorry Baker Center, understood all these practices, and that is reflecting in their construction today. So if we could hold our values and not compromise on just the trends, I think we will be able to make, we'll be able to showcase our values, because all these are not just high end. Most of it is small changes in the practice. So it's very important to hold our values, and architectural education is about the experience that we gain. So yeah, I think that is very important. Never compromise on values for just money. Okay. How about public space that could follow all the social distancing norms, especially in case of pandemic? The space could act as a leisure space relaxing to where one could spend sort of time in contact with or getting arrested. Okay, so yeah, this is an interesting thing. Of late, recently, there are so many posts that come in social media about people, at least within our fraternity, making fun of people who regret not having balconies and all of this. So I think we can, like, it's very important. It's a holistic approach that we'll have to follow, right from designing of individual residences to cities, to have these kind of spaces where people can. So again, if this unforeseen situation happens, it would help us and not keep us inside the four walls. Public spaces will definitely help, but again, how much of it can you use when you're under social distancing is something that needs to be looked at. There was one more question. How do we create the sense of ownership? Sense of ownership is definitely by making the space active and make them feel connected. So if there is a park in the neighborhood, only if I use, so for me to use, it has to address my requirements, and for everybody to use, it has to be diverse. It has to have something for every user. Like for example, if I'm allowed to take the case of another tower park, if you guys know about it, I have noticed it has been attracting diverse set of crowd all around. But same the cases in Kanaginagar, it is not working because people don't want those kind of parks and it's all unused. So a bit more also because the parks are very small and they do not have anything, something for everybody to engage. So it has to be only when we make them use, basically make them active users of the space, that will establish the connect, and that might establish the passive ownership for the space, and they will come together when there is something, when there is a threat for that open space or any public space. I've heard and experienced so many good things that NASA has done, but what do you think NASA India lacks? Um, NASA India actually right now lacks, is being seen as a student's body. The amount of work that goes, and it's not just about uh, organization that organizes events. Especially in the past 5-6 years, the focus has been on a lot more reaching out to students, engaging them in a lot of other activities. So it is the support from students. It's not just about winning. NASA India is a learning platform. Each time you work on a trophy, I have seen cases where people feel, oh, we don't win, and it is not a platform for us. And even for those institutions that feel, oh, now we are grown up, we don't need NASA. It is not about like who leave because they are not winning. It's not always about winning. It's about what you learn, and what trophies is just one aspect of NASA. And these days there are so many other things that are being added as a part of the association. It gives a voice, so student support and the way they see NASA India has to change. And it's very important, like the orientation that the USEX do to the students also plays a very important role. So I think if the representatives can support the association more and take part more in the activities along with the students, we will be able to make a change, which will in turn change the way how NASA is being looked at, and it will encourage more support from management and other authorities.
Okay, now so maybe we'll take up one last question, and then we'll wind up the session now, since it's been taking a lot of time. So how has the use of public space changed since the past? Why has the provision of the public pockets become a necessity in the present scenario?
Public spaces are, like, it helps us in maintaining a healthy life, a balance and healthy life. Basically, it allows you to come together, interact with people, have that sense of belonging. It allows an opportunity for people to come together, and it depends on various types of public spaces. Public spaces are very necessary. Like, for example, we have this Central Vista thing going on right now. So public spaces have always been places where people can voice, or in cases of protests, like how we have Marina Beach. It is we saw how people came together during Jallikattu protests and all of this. Public spaces are very important, mainly because it allows us to come interact with people. Secondly, it also allows citizen to express a democratic right. And in some observations that we have seen so far, public spaces are very strategically placed in front of administrative location. Like, for example, we had People's Park surrounding Central, Ribbon Building and all of those. So it in planning also, it allows citizens to participate, express their democratic right of reaching to them through public space. Now we don't have the People's Park, but yeah, it's very public spaces are important. Apart from that, it brings the balance. So if we look at the open space or green cover that we have, Chennai has compared to other cities in India is also very less, and any city in India compared to UN standards is very less. The per capita open space required is very important, like for us to have something about beyond the routine life, routine work life.
Thank you, no, thank you so much. So with this, I think we'll wind up the session. It was very informative. To be very frank, this has taken us to another understanding that beyond drawing any plan sections and concepts in college, the actual understanding starts and when we put something into action and it is actually put it into a real forum. So in that way, it is actually conveying a lot of information. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Can I have a few words, Krishna Priya?
Yes, and now to you.
Yeah, Srivardhana, Rumba, thanks, because it was of such a short notice, and you've done a great presentation. Thanks a lot, na. Because in the session, like we had a lot of fourth years involved in the session today, because they are doing urban design presently, and most of the people are really lacking. Like the questions were raised on that, so many questions. They didn't knew what would be the end product, because the random. If you're taking some case studies also, like the person who had involved will not be presenting to them, so they didn't had the sense of that. I think the session has brought a very good perspective for them, and thank you so much, Na. Thank you for your time. Like thank you so much. Your presentation
Thank you.
was
It is actually very nice if it reflects, because if we believe in making a change together and not just one organization can do. So if all of us can join hands and do it in whatever ways, it will be interesting. And since you brought that end product, so in UDC, one more interesting thing is we are in certain cases we are not sure of what is going to be the end product, and it is mostly developed along the process. So that is a very interesting approach they have in UDC that we follow. So this is also very helpful for us to, so it's not necessary to always know what is the end product. It will eventually be developed through the process, but I understand there are some restrictions in terms of what you need to produce for a review in terms of design and built environment. But on reality, it is nice to not know the end product and explore it along the process.
Very true, actually.
That's a
Because
great
that is
point.
what we also constrain that we are also facing from our urban design side. So this is one takeaway point for us to actually take up a stand and then work on this process, so that it's going to take us in a way that is actually looking forward in the society. Thank you so much, now.
Thank you, Na.
All the best for your
Thank you so much.
seed
Thank you so
initiative.
much. Na.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye now. Yeah.
So yeah, the session is ending. Thank you so much for everyone that who's taken and been consistent in participating throughout. So we still have more sessions coming up in line, and we hope to see you again in another session also. Thank you so much. And please do leave a lot of feedbacks for the session, as it is helping us in growing us as a team and to take more things forward, because your inputs are what we are taking into actions and it's coming up in reality too. Yes. So with this we wind up. Thanks again.